Suppressive fire was no target fire, just to keep them from shooting at you, and truthfully it was to keep you from going insane, because at that moment you pretty much felt like going insane. There was total chaos, a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling for medics. Chaos. It was just unimaginable chaos. I didn't get hit during the Mad Minute. I had also been in Vietnam long enough to understand that after the first 15 seconds, with everyone firing on full automatic and unloading their weapons in the ambush, there has to be a period of about 7 or 8 seconds where everyone has to reload. And you can hear it. You can hear it. It's a total chaos of that. Everyone firing goes down to sporadic firing almost instantly, because everyone runs out of ammunition at the same time. And then you can hear the clicking. You can hear the changing clips. And that's the time to move. And if you haven't totally panicked already, if you're not scared out of your mind, if you're not dysfunctional, then you have to get off that killing zone. That's the only way you're going to survive. And that's also the time you look around for your friends to find if anybody's wounded, find if anybody's alive, anybody's frozen, and get them off with you. Slap them, grab them, do whatever you have to do, but get them out of there, and get yourself out of there. I managed to gather my squad. There was one wounded, no killed, and we managed to back up and get away to the right behind a tree line. By now, firing started again. There was all kinds of rounds because they had already reloaded, but it was a different kind of firing, because by now, everybody wasn't unloading their weapons. They were picking targets. So you would hear the fire, but it was a lot more staccato. It was a lot more even, and you weren't going to get another silence in that ambush. Now, when you're in training, you're taught the only way to get out of an ambush is you've got to go in the direction of that ambush. That's great in training. I mean, it doesn't work in real life. It's a way to get people butchered. The best way to get off an ambush is any way you can. The shortest distance out. And unfortunately, oftentimes, if you're closer to the fire than away from the fire, yeah, that's the only way to go. Is you have to rush the ambush. We weren't. So we got off the ambush to the right, get out of the killing zone, and we're sitting there trying to figure what to do now, and try and just gather ourselves, because we were all hearts pounding, out of breath, scared. I'm not going to get into obscenities. We were scared, but I was a squad leader at the time, and so everybody looked at me like, what do we do? And I wasn't sure what to do. I just knew that if we stayed in that one spot long enough, somebody was going to shoot us. We had to move. And I did not want to move back on the killing zone. That didn't make any sense. So it kind of occurred to me, don't go back the way you came, because that was kind of a rule, an unwritten rule is never go back the way you came. And so the only direction I could think of moving would be around the L, moving to the right and forward and coming behind the L. And if we were really lucky, we'd get behind them and we'd be able to do some damage back there. as I said, this was complete chaos. Nobody, including the officers who were leading us, knew what was going on. There were officers that were wounded, there were officers that were dying, there were some officers that were new to the field that were panicking. About this time was when the forward observer, who was an officer that was sent out to move with the infantry unit, he was sent out and he was there to control both air cover, helicopter gunships, and artillery fire when you needed it. And he was on the radio with the artillery and with the gunships. Just as chaotic for him as anybody else. He was trying to place the ambush, I think. We were moving behind the ambush. Nobody knew we were out there. Nobody knew where anybody was at this point. Knew there were people on the killing zone. We were getting chewed to pieces. We knew that. We knew we needed to get some kind of support, some artillery, some gunships in the area. We knew that really quickly. And he called in a flight of Hueys. You can call in either artillery or you can call in air support. You can't call in both because the artillery will hit the gunships, you know, and you can't put your gunships at risk. Same time, they were yelling for medevacs. They needed medevacs in there because they needed people moved out, you know, back to the rear to get for surgery, for care. So the choice was send in the medevacs, send in the gunships, and rake the area. And there was a new tool that they had just started using in Vietnam called a minigun. And now they show them on movies now. They have rotating barrels, and when you fire it, it all kind of goes around and spreads the fire out. Well, that was new back in those days, and it was a very scary weapon. A normal machine gun, normal M60 machine gun, fired about 600 rounds a minute, which is 10 rounds per second, which is fast in and of itself. A minigun fires 6,000 rounds per minute, which is 100 rounds per second. So you always knew a minigun. You always knew the sound of it. It hummed, you know. You'd hear it. If you took a deck of cards and you just flicked it back and you know, the way a deck of cards goes down, that was the sound of a minigun up close. From a distance, it was like a ray gun. It was just, you'd hear this thing. And you'd see it at night. You'd see like a ribbon. Every sixth round of a minigun was a tracer. A tracer is a bullet that has luminescence, a red luminescence to it. It's for firing at night, so you know where your rounds are going. And every sixth round was a tracer. And the weapon fired so fast that the tracers just blended together so that when you saw it coming out of a gunship in the sky, all you would see is this ribbon of red that came down and hit the ground. And you knew that whoever was under there was in a lot of trouble. So we've moved behind this ambush. We've gotten around behind it. Nobody knew we were out there. They called in a gunship, called in gunship support, and gave them grid coordinates to fire. And they came in on an azimuth through the killing zone, held their fire, presumably saw the top of the L in the ambush, opened fire on them, and held fire long enough to spray us. So my wounds were the result of a United States Army gunship, what they call friendly fire.